Today I'm going to talk to you about being at home with preschoolers. Hi, my name is Misty Spinelli. You know, preschool is a beautiful time of life and it is a super fun time to be a parent. It's said that children learn almost half of all they learn in life in those first few years. But it is very important to understand what they should be learning during this time and what they should not be learning. Sometimes because they're learning so fast, we want to cram in as much as possible and start teaching them things that they're not developmentally ready for. First, what's the difference between a toddler and a preschooler? Well, toddler has developed some more sophisticated abilities than your toddler. They can symbolize things, which means that they can turn that toy car into a car with real car sounds. They have super increased their make-believe play, and they have the ability to anticipate consequences, such as they understand now that the round peg won't go in the square hole. They say why about 1,000,000 times a day, and they have a sudden increase of vocabulary, sometimes as much as 50 new words a month. Okay, so now that you know whether or not you have a preschooler, what and how to teach those preschoolers. Your number one task is to teach them language. They need to interact with more mature speakers such as yourself and older siblings much more than their peers. They don't need to hear other baby talkers and children speaking all day long. That will not help them learn the proper way to talk. So you talk with them. Have lots of conversations with them. It should be two-way. One of the best ways to do this is to develop stories together. You can simply say to your preschooler, let's think up a story. What do you want it to be about? And off you go. You ask questions or supply ideas. They answer the questions. They take off telling the story on their own. Sometimes they might be so good at it you would have to stop and interject in order for it to be a two-way conversation. That's a good thing, but make sure that you do that. The idea is that both of you are talking. Another great way to start a conversation is to tell your little one a story about when you were a child. There will be lots of new vocabulary in that story, and they will love the fact that they start to realize that you once were a child as well. Mainly, though, the main thing you need to do to increase your child's language ability is to read to them. The language in books is well crafted. It is at a higher level than most of us speak on a regular basis. Picture books are designed to delight and inspire and build vocabulary. I'm going to give you an example. Here's a passage out of the wonderful children's book, Stella Luna. The dark leafy tangle of branches caught Stella Luna as she fell. One twig was small enough for Stella Luna's tiny feet. Wrapping her wings about her, she clutched the thin branch, trembling with cold and fear. Personally, I don't go around talking about the dark leafy tangle of branches or use the word clutched or trembling very often in my day-to-day speech. It is through this great children's literature that they learn a higher level of speech and understanding of vocabulary. Once you've read to them, have them tell it back to you. First, use the book so that they can use the pictures to help them tell you the story, but build up to their ability to tell the story without the pictures. For instance, at the end of the day, you can say, let's tell Dad about the story we read today. If they need your help, you can help along the way, but encourage them to tell their version of the story and do not correct them. This technique is called narration. It's when you have a child tell back what you've read to them or what they've read themselves once they're old enough to read. The purpose of narration is that it expands the children's thinking skills. It allows them to remember much better what they've learned. And the main benefit for preschoolers is that it lets them put their new vocabulary to work. And it helps them develop composition skills that they will use later on. Please limit your preschoolers' screen time as much as possible. It is so important for preschoolers to interact humanly with real speakers and to do things, not to sit passively by with no or minimal interaction. A quick side note here though, do not begin teaching your preschooler to read and write. There are too many more important things that you need to be teaching them and they need to be learning right now. And they are not going to be able to learn to read and write very well at this level because they're not capable. Most of them cannot hear the fine distinctions that's needed to start a phonics program. Their eyes aren't ready for reading. Most of them are farsighted. They don't have coordinated binocular vision, meaning their eyes don't land in exactly the same spot. That comes a little later. And as for workbooks and writing, there are several major wrist bones that are still cartilage. So having super fine motor skills well enough to write has not developed yet either. Do, however, make them aware of words. Words everywhere. Read the signs on the stores and the cover of the magazine, but mainly read those great, awesome children's books that are full of pictures, and show them as you're reading where the words are. Follow along with your finger if you need to. Make them aware that the reading comes from the words. One of the main things that preschoolers are needing to learn right now is problem solving. It is something that they're working on their own through play. Think of how they will figure out a problem. I want my toy train to go over there underneath the chair. They figure out how to make that happen. They experiment with the concepts of the world around them. How far can I roll the ball down the hall? They interact with all the different things in their environment. They may sit still for 15 minutes leafing through a book. They're learning how to do that. They also learn to persevere. If you ever watched a child try to cram a toy into a space it doesn't really fit into, they will sit and work on that for a long time if they've made up their mind that's what they need to do. All these things are super good for them. Problem solving is a paramount development that is so important for their success in school. So because most of that comes through play, there are lots of studies that show that children who are allowed to have playtime or encouraged to have more playtime have higher creativity, higher problem solving abilities, and a higher use of language. However, when I say play, make sure you do not have toy overload. Too many toys makes playtime confusing. I don't know which thing to play with, right? So limit the number of toys that are out and about at any one time. Hide most of them away and bring them out occasionally as you put others away. Preschoolers don't need very many toys. They have vivid imaginations. They can play with almost anything in the house. It does not have to be a toy. I have had many a child play restaurant with me with Matchbox cars. I have been served many a Mustang and told that it was a hot dog. And the way you react to that is you simply say, "Thank you, it looks delicious," and proceed to pretend to eat it and give it back to them and ask them how much you owe them. Thin air works just as well as things for most preschoolers, if you know what I mean. For instance, I can pay for my hot dog by just simply acting as if I am paying for it, and they will take the money from me. So we don't actually have to have items to interact with. No preschool ever needs that. Their imaginations are unlimited. Make sure you're willing to just go with it. Preschools are also developing things such as their awareness of the stuff around them, their perception of what's going on, their reasoning, and their judgment. So make sure that you're working on these as well. They're beginning to understand past and future. So include these concepts in your play with them. What did your restaurant serve yesterday? I have to leave now, but I'll come back tomorrow. What do you think you'll have to eat then? So these ideas of the past and the future help them start making sense of all that. However, concepts like time and space and age are still very difficult for them. So if you say, "I'll be back at 2," they will not know what you mean by that. Their attention is obviously not fully developed, so they're very easily distracted. That's why it's good to give them activities that help them concentrate. A good example would be something that will keep them busy for a long time. You could tie some string between 2 chairs, cut out of paper some laundry, give them clothespins and a clothes basket, and they'll work for a very long time hanging out the laundry. Now, this is a good example of how you can expand their knowledge in things. What if you don't hang out the laundry and they've never seen anyone else hang out the laundry? So look it up. Find a book that has it in it, or look it up online. Show them pictures. Talk to them about the type of people who do and why do they and how it's been done in the past, right? Lots of new vocabulary and a really fun activity of hanging up your laundry. Preschoolers love to become experts at something, such as hanging up of laundry. You'd be surprised what will get them interested. But if they show any interest in anything, you need to go with it. Find books on it, look it up online, click the little image thing on Google and get a whole page of beautiful pictures. Tell them all the words. Don't worry about if they're big or not. If they are interested, they will learn a ton about it. On the other hand, if they're not interested, you're not going to get very far at all. So you have to teach to the things they're interested in right now. Preschoolers also love to create. Give them paper and pencils and watercolors and markers and crayons and set up a place where they can get a little messy and it's not going to ruin anything in your house, and let them be creative. Now, I have a Master of Fine Arts degree, and this is one of my areas of expertise is teaching children art. So I'm going to give you a few ground rules here. You can watch another video that explains art a lot more, but just quickly, do not teach them how to draw. Preschoolers are experiencing the media, meaning the pencils, the markers, the paint, the same way they're experiencing their bodies when they dance. Okay, this is big arm movements, this is fun media, this is figuring out what happens with a brush, what happens with a marker. This has nothing to do with the image that ends up being on my paper. Okay, so keep that in mind. So don't say, wow, that's pretty when you're done. They weren't making an image that was supposed to be pretty, so that'd be a weird thing to tell them. And it sets you up for saying everything they ever create is pretty, and then they know that you lie, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. So just don't go there. What they're really doing is they're developing some fine motor skills, and they're developing their right brain, and they're learning to tell stories. As they get just a little bit older, they will actually tell stories in their pictures. So instead of saying that's pretty when they hand you something they've made, say, wow, tell me about this. And if they don't have much to say, if they're just, it was fun, then you really get it. It was an experience for them. Or they might say, it turned out all brown, which is what will happen with all of the first watercolors they do, because they have so much fun with all the colors on top of each other. It just becomes brown. And that's fine. Make sure they know the name of the color brown. You can compliment their story if they tell you a story. You can compliment how hard they've worked on it, but please don't tell them that it looks a certain way. That comes when they're 12, if it did turn out good. All right, my other rules. Do not give them coloring books, and do not tell them they need to color inside the lines, and please don't teach them how to draw a stick figure. Follow those rules and your child will be creative and love everything to do with art. And you can watch videos on what to do with them as they get older out of the preschool stage if you want to continue that love for the creative arts. Probably one of the most important things for this age child is physical activity and activity with you. So doing things. They've got to learn how to live life, and they should do it side by side with you. So when I say they should do things with you, of course, I don't mean join in on your business phone call or help you put together an Excel file, but I do mean cooking meals, doing laundry, making beds, changing the baby, everything, every family task they can be included in. They can help you, and they can learn how to do aspects of it. You can intuitively tell what's safe for them to do and what's not. But you can help them do tons of grown-up tasks. Their physical growth, of course, is super important right now, and as many of us are cooped up, we really need to work on making sure that they are exercising. They need to learn how to run, hop, jump, skip, and balance mainly. So have races down the hall, first running, then hopping, then skipping. play Mother May I, have balancing competitions. This can simply be, I can stand on one foot longer than you can. You do not need any fancy things in order to help a preschooler work on their physical activity. The idea is for them to be healthy and happy and well developed, and it doesn't take any special toys or workbooks or qualifications in early childhood development. It mainly just takes your attention. So in my video on routines and schedules, I mentioned that if you give a preschooler a half an hour of your undivided attention, that you'll probably get an hour of freedom. This does work, however, you do need to get them started in an appropriate play activity, but they can become totally engrossed in many things and play on their own if you give them some attention on and off throughout the day. So if you're having to work from home, stop every hour and play something with them, or simply when you stop to go do a chore, make sure you go get them and have them join you as you go do the chore. They will learn and be happy and developing properly. Keep the screens away from them. It is a hard habit to break, and it is detrimental to all of their development. The thing they most need is your time. A little time of you playing with them, a lot of time of them helping you do life, and a fair amount of time playing on their own. Enjoy this wonderful stage of life. It goes away very quickly.